I would like to raise a point regarding advertising, and going back to Patrick's earlier address. In the coming years in the UK, we've got two major sports events appearing on us, the 2012 Olympics and the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Now, isn't it a bit of hypocrisy by our government, both north and south of the border, to be starting looking now at banning certain forms of advertising, and in particular they are targeting companies such as Coca-Cola and McDonald's in this sphere, when they will be relying on them, these key commercial companies, to help fund these games. Do the health lobbies have alternative forms of funding available? Because when we're looking at solutions or lobbying politicians with regard to smoking, for instance, we're also putting forward solutions. And I would like to think that when these people are decrying these commercial companies for their involvement in healthy sports, that if the plug is pulled, that they come up with the funding to keep these events going.
Well, we're seeing about 50% of all advertising in the UK seems to be from the government anyway. I guess it'll just be a case of doubling their expenditure.
In response to what Bill had just asked, I actually saw a local programme in Yorkshire Television where Gillian Merron is actually the MP of Lincoln, and she's Public Health Minister. On this local programme, a young interviewer was putting to her just Bill's question, why are these companies like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, being invited to advertise at these sporting events? And Miss Merron said, we cannot tell people how to live their lives. We cannot tell people what to eat. I was astounded. I was absolutely astounded. That's all I'd like to say. So maybe Miss Merron answered your question.
Anybody else? Anything anyone would like to say?
Yeah, two things. First, as a reaction to what Patrick Basham just said about the intentions of anti-smokers, I personally think that the industry argument is just a facade. The WHO has declared in the 90s they want a tobacco-free world. It means a world without any tobacco consumer, obviously. Smokers, chewers, whatever. The industry, and this argument is just used as a tool. It's the proof for it is that the anti-smoking movement has existed centuries before there was such a thing as the modern tobacco industry. Same applies to the other sectors. They're always attacking so-called alcohol lobbies and food lobbies, etc. But it's in fact it's always the consumer. And I mean, the more intelligent of the anti-smokers or anti-drinkers, whatever, they know that their policies are harming primarily the consumers, their image, their purse, etc. And in this sense, the industry is maybe it's a marginal aspect, but it's often used as an argument to say some industry is by definition bad, and we as fanatics or as government are, or as medical doctors are by definition good. It's something like friend and foe, black and white, etc. And the other aspect is that I was wondering, I mean, it's a conference in honor of Jan Toci, what Jan would have particularly liked about, or which speeches, or I wouldn't say speeches, which kind of impulse from the speakers he would have especially appreciated. There was a lot in Kamal Shawashi's speech that Jan would have definitely liked, attacking the FCTC the FCTC plays a major role, not just because it's from the UN or that the EU has signed it. It's also, I think, all of the nation states that are represented here by us have ratified the FCTC, and it's actually about bringing it down, not just like the Dutch politician we had here, who, of course, doesn't really have a clue about the real international and general picture of it. He just says we pick something from it and we are a bit flexible and we might not agree with everything of it. No, it's we have to fight it in principle. And what Jan would have liked even more is your idea of bringing these liars and these fraudsters to court, to actually punish people that are living by bullshitting people and by damaging the lives, the lifestyles, the economies, etc. So that's a major point, and I very much appreciated your ideas on religion, on what might come from certain areas in the world. I hope that things like that will happen, and we certainly have to look for regions, countries, leaders. You named somebody from South America. I have other ideas of some very few, maybe perhaps world leaders that might support our cause, and then it could spread. That's very important, and thank you, of course, also Michael McFadden, for your very practical ideas and for your point about truth and facts. That would have something, or that is something that also Jan Toci would have loved a lot. He has devoted more than 10 years for this fight about truth and against junk science, and that should be our primary tool and our primary intention to destroy this institutional fraud problem that we have with the passive smoking fraud and all the other frauds that are related to it. This is also an answer to our Dutch colleague to the question about lying. We don't need to lie. I mean, and it wouldn't help us if we lied, because up to this point, people aren't really listening, or mass media, for instance, aren't really listening to us when we're telling the truth. We wouldn't gain anything if we started lying the same as the antis did. But we should cherish the truth and the facts and the science we have on our side, and ultimately, eventually, at a certain point, this will prevail.
Well, can we get the microphone over to Martin, please? Thanks. This is one from the internet, presumably?
This is from Irosiro, who's in Canada. She's asked to relate to the room. I find Dr. Chelsky's suggestion of demanding our respective countries to pull out from the WHO Framework Convention because of the havoc it's causing societies based on nothing but corporate interest in pseudoscience. She thinks it really has merit, and she hopes TICAP looks at its angle, which would go hand in hand with the Brussels Declaration, and invite TICAP member organisations to launch such an initiative.
Can I ask you, Dr. Chelsky, your other point in your plan was to bring prosecutions against various people.
One of them, the last one.
Yes.
The last one, yes.
How,
we are in the Hague.
What kind of thing do you have in mind specifically? I mean, who and why?
I have heard once that the organization Forces, once had the idea of launching a big trial, to bring all these liars to court. And I think this idea has been... I found it excellent by that time, I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't remember. So I think that we should federate all the problems and make a big trial.